Most Muslims rely on translations to understand Islam. They basically practice a translated version of their religion. But here's the issue: the Qur'an, the Sunnah, the words of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his companions, they weren't revealed in English.
هذا ممكن هنا ليس مشكلة يعني أنا يعني 18 years old.
Yeah, that was me. I was 18, trying to practice a religion I couldn't fully understand. Everything I knew was a translation. It was filtered, it was incomplete. And I always wondered, what am I missing by not being able to read it directly? Then I heard the scholars speaking about the Arabic language, urging us to learn it not as a luxury, but as a lifeline. Because the Islamic translation is just not the same. So here are 10 quotes that changed everything for me. So perhaps you can be reminded and know that Arabic is not just grammar, it's your connection to Allah. So if the Qur'an feels distant and foreign, maybe this is why. The first quote is by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he says in his own words, اعتياد اللغة يؤثر في العقل والخلق والدين تأثيرا قويا بينا ويؤثر أيضا في مشابهة صدر هذه الأمة من الصحابة والتابعين ومشابهتهم تزيد العقل والدين والخلق. So Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he says that اعتياد اللغة, basically getting accustomed to using the Arabic language as your form of communication, as your form of reading, as your form of understanding the Deen, as your form of talking to your Creator, has a great effect in your intellect and mannerisms and character, and your Deen as well, your level of practice. Now, so basically, it makes you more intelligent. It gives you better akhlaq, because the Arabic language has a lot of ta'birat, a lot of expressions that when you use them, it just makes you a more eloquent human being, a person with better manners. And in terms of your religion, in the language, if in the context of Islam, it has a lot of dhikr in it. And I was talking about this a few days ago about someone, and we were saying how, subhanAllah, if you speak in Arabic, it's so normal to make dua for the person you're talking to. Assalamu alaikum f'hali hayyak Allah. May Allah keep you alive, give you life. طال الله عمرك طال عمرك. May Allah give you long years. عافاك الله, Allah يعافيك, Allah يعطيك العافية. There is responses to it. May Allah keep you safe. May Allah keep you safe as well. سلمك Allah. May Allah. It's so easy to speak and say 15 du'as in the space of 1 minute when speaking Arabic. However, when you speak in English, if you translate it, you become almost weird by using so much dhikr of Allah when talking. If you say, hey, assalamu alaikum, how you doing? May Allah bless you. May Allah keep you safe. How you doing? How's your parents? May Allah bless your parents. May Allah give you long life. How is everything? How is everything doing? MashaAllah, may Allah keep you safe. May Allah give you safety. It's like, okay, oh, brother, you're making too many du'as, which should be normal, right? Because it's dhikr of Allah and it's du'a for the person. But it's very rare to see somebody that speaks English and keeps on saying, may Allah bless you. May Allah reward you for everything you do. May Allah bless you. How you doing? Everything good? MashaAllah. May Allah protect your parents. How are they? Okay, oh good. It's heavy, it's weird, it's heavy on the tongue. And so with the Arabic, even children would use these terminologies. And so the dhikr is continuous. So you are always reminded by Allah Azza wa Jal. So imagine if you are about to get into something, that's haram. And it's such a natural thing to say, Allah, Bismillah. In the Arab world, it's very simple to let somebody come in the door or whatever. Bismillah, tfaddal. Bismillah, in the name of Allah, come in. In English, it would be weird to say, oh yes, please, job interview. Yes, please sit down. In the name of God. Come on, sit down. I was like, what? What you mean in the name of God? So this way it has an effect in your deen, because you are continuously reminded by Allah Azza wa Jal. And obviously, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ, isn't that with the dhikr of Allah, the hearts become soft. And so if in the language itself there is a lot of dhikr, your heart will obviously be soft. As a result, your deen becomes better, your practice and how submitted you are to Allah. Then Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he continues, he says, there is a strong qawi bayyin, and his bayyin is dhahir, is clear, the effect that Arabic has on this person. And actually I would show you how I was before I learned the Arabic language in this clip.
Yeah, so that's what it is. my girl, smart gets on your brain, motherfucker.
And then this video is literally just about 2 years after having learned the Arabic language and having used it as a tool to basically gain more knowledge.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Qur'an فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ.
And then Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he says وَيُؤَثِّرُ أيضا في مشابهة صدر هذه الأمة من الصحابة والتابعين. And it has an effect as well because it brings you closer to be similar to the first generations, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the tabi'in and those who saw the companions but didn't see the Prophet, which was the 100 years after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away. And the fact that you are, you look like them and adapt a lot of resemblance of these people, these as a result, it increases your aql, your intellect, your deen, and your khuluq, as mentioned in the beginning. This is the first quote. The second quote by Imam Shafi'i, he says, أصحاب العربية جن الإنس يبصرون ما لا يبصر غيرهم. Imam Shafi'i, he said that the people of Arabic, i.e. the people who gives interest in learning the Arabic language and know the Arabic language, they are the jinn of amongst the mankind. Now, jinn, they are known to have traits that human beings don't have, like being able to move from one place to another super fast, being able to have super, what is the word I'm looking for? Super normal, super levels of and traits of intelligence and speed and being from one place to another and being able to do all of the different things that the jinn have been given the capacity to do by Allah Azza wa Jal, which the mankind doesn't have. And so Shaykh Imam Shafi'i, he says that the people who know the Arabic language, they are like the jinn, but amongst mankind, because they see what others don't. I.e., they can go deep in meanings in the Qur'an and in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that the regular person is not able to see because he lacks knowledge of the Arabic language. Now I'm skimming through the rest of the quotes and I'm leaving the best for the last. So make sure to stay until the end of the quotes if you want to see why you really need to learn the Arabic language. Now the quote number 3 is by Umar ibn al-Khattab. He says, تَعَلَّمُوا الْعَرَبِيَّ فَإِنَّهَا تثبت العقل وتزيد في المروءة. Umar ibn Khattab, he says, تعلموا العربية فإنها تثبت العقل وتزيد في المروءة. Now, before I get into this, do you see how many of them said that it solidifies your aql, your intellect? Basically, it makes you more intelligent, knowing the Arabic language. وتزيد المروءة, he says. And you become more of a person that has self-respect, self-dignity. And we made a whole video about what al-muru'ah is. If you want to go watch it, it's going to be the second link in the description. The first link, by the way, and I'm going to take the advantage of me mentioning this right now here. The first link is going to be a link to your guys' favorite video this year, which is where I speak for 1 hour on how to actually learn the Arabic language in 5 steps. In there, I will show you as well students who actually have to learn the Arabic language through our institute. I will show you as well the actual way on how to learn the Arabic language. And at the end, I explain to you how our program works in case you want to actually take this serious and start learning. That's going to be the first link in the description. The second link in the description is going to be a video that talks about al-muru'ah, where I explain more in depth what al-muru'ah is, and we went in depth about how the word itself is so difficult to translate with just one word in English. And I think it took me about 20 minutes to explain that word alone. So once you finish watching this video, you can go ahead and watch these 2 other videos, inshallah. The 4th quote is by Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, better known as the Doctor of the Hearts. Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, وَإِنَّمَا يُعْرَفُ فَضْلُهُ مَنْ عَرَفَ كَلَامَ الْعَرَبِ وعلم العربية وعرف علم البيان فإذا علم ذلك في هذا الكتاب العزيز ورأى ما أودعه الله سبحانه فيه من البلاغة والفصاحة وفنون البيان فقد أوتي فيه العجب العجاب. This is deep, and I want you to pay attention on this one, because Ibn al-Jawzi, with his words, wallahi, in Arabic, you will never taste his how he writes and his way of authoring and speaking translated in English, but I'll do my best. Now, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, only the one who knows the speech of the Arab, يُعْرَفُ فَضْلُهُ, he will know its fadl, its honor. Al-fadl here, in this context, it can be translated as everything that it contains in good, everything positive that it contains, the fadl of the Arabic language. And somebody who is well versed in the science of rhetoric, like al-bayan and al-fasaha, and how to speak eloquently in the Arabic language. Only those can truly understand its merit, its fadl, it's everything that's positive that it contains. So when such a person applies that knowledge to this noble book, when somebody takes that knowledge of the Arabic language and applies it and uses it as a tool to understand the Qur'an with all its poetic and rhymes and fasaha and rhetoric and everything that's beautiful related to the language in the Qur'an, which in itself is a revelation and is a miracle linguistically wise. And this is why the Arab in that time, they knew it couldn't come from Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam because of the eloquence. And this was one of the miracles of the Qur'an, is that the Arab, they were known for being very eloquent, and they couldn't come up with rhymes and verses as the Qur'an came with. And the Prophet ﷺ, he couldn't write or read. So how was it possible? So for them, that was enough of a miracle to either accept it and accept Islam, or either call Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Muhammad as they were referred to him because of their lack of respect, but we say Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to refer to him as a kahin, as a magician, as a sha'ir, as a poet, and so on. So when such person uses it to understand the Qur'an, and he sees what is in there from al-balagha, from the poetry and eloquence, wal-fasaha wa funun al-bayan, فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ فِيهِ الْعَجَبَ الْعُجَابِ, then he will indeed witness astonishing marvels. And in Arabic, when somebody, he is given al-ajab al-ujab, he is given the most astonishing thing he can ever be given. Al-ajab al-ujab. So Al-Imam al-Qayyim, he says here that whoever knows the Arabic language and uses it to understand the Qur'an, he will be astonished with the most astonishing, findings that he had in his life while understanding the Qur'an in the Arabic language. The quote number 5 is by Al-Imam Shafi'i again. He says, ما جهل الناس ولا اختلفوا إلا لتركهم لسان العرب وميلهم إلى لسان أرسطاطاليس. Al-Imam Shafi'i, he says that people only became ignorant, i.e. Muslims became ignorant and divided when they abandoned the Arabic language and inclined toward the language of Aristotle, which is the language of the Greeks, basically. So at that time, and if you know a little bit the context and history of the Greeks, at one point they were very known for their philosophy and their stoicism and all this philosophy and concepts that they came up with and these principles of life. And a lot of Muslims, they were as well astonished by it because of their lack of knowledge in Islam, because all of this we have it in Islam. And so they started to leave the Arabic language and go more towards these principles that the Greeks started, coming up with. And so then they tried to then apply it in Islam. And this is what Imam Shafi'i says, that they started to become ignorant and divided. They started to create sects once they left the Arabic language and they started to go towards Greek or other languages, basically, right? So, I mean, you could say nowadays that Muslims, they only started Like you can apply the same quote of Imam Shafi'i back then and say Muslims, they become more ignorant and more divided nowadays once they left the Arabic language and instead started relying on trying to understand al-Islam in other languages than Arabic, i.e. being English, whatever other language. The next quote says, Al-Imam Malik ibn Anas, he says, لا أوت برجل يفسر كتاب الله غير عالم بلغات العرب إلا جعلته نكالا. Al-Imam Malik, he says, if I see someone interpreting the book of Allah Azza wa Jal without knowing Arabic, I will make him an example for others, i.e. I will punish him harshly. Because somebody who tries to do ta'wil and do tafsir of the Qur'an without the Arabic language, he is more likely doing it from the top of his head, from his experiences, from how he feels, from what he thinks, from his philosophies, and everything that's in his mind, instead of doing it from the actual book and how it's being revealed. Because if you know the lugha of the Arab, you will understand it how it's supposed to be understood and how the Prophet ﷺ taught his companions to understand it. And this is the reason why as-Sahaba, they were still asking the Prophet ﷺ, even though they were Arab, what does this mean and what does that mean? There is a report of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, who didn't understand what Fatir al-Samawati wal-Ard meant, and you can find that in Tafsir ibn Kathir. Fatir al-Samawati wal-Ard meant until he heard two Arabs fighting over a well, who started it. So then he understood that Fatir means somebody who started it. So then he understood the ayah that Allah is the one that started Fatir al-Samawati wal-Ard, the heavens and the earth. So you can see that the Sahaba, even though Arabic was their language, even the Qur'an needed to be explained to them. This to say that somebody who nowadays reads the Qur'an, the translation of the Qur'an, and tries to explain to you what Allah said, he should be punished harshly, according to Imam Malik ibn Anas. Because what are you talking about? First of all, the translation lost already a bunch of meaning. And you are trying to explain and say that Allah said this, and it don't make no sense. The seventh quote by Mujahid ibn Jabr, one of the greatest mufassirun and interpreters of tafsir in the Qur'an. He says, لا يحل لأحد يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر أن يتكلم في كتاب الله إذا لم يكن عالما بلغات العرب. Mujahid, he says that it's not allowed for anyone who believes in Allah in the last day to speak about the book of Allah without knowing the language of the Arabs, i.e. knowing the Arabic language. You don't have the right to even try to explain the Qur'an if you don't know Arabic. Because through the translation, this is pretty much saying, and the contrast of this saying is, the translation is not what Allah Azza wa Jal say. It's a close interpretation that it will rely on the capacity and the ability of the one who's translating it to bring across and try and get close to the interpretation of the actual meaning. But what you need to really do to understand it is to read it in the language of the Arab and go to the tafsir on how the Prophet ﷺ and his companions understood it. The eighth one is by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. He says, and this is one amongst the ones that will make you say, okay, yeah, I think I need to learn the Arabic language. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he said, إِنَّ اللُّغَةَ الْعَرَبِيَّةَ مِنَ الدِّينِ. The Arabic language is part of the religion. وَمَعْرِفَتَهَا فَرْضٌ وَاجِبٌ. And understanding it and knowing it is fard, is compulsory and wajib and obligatory. فَإِنَّ فَهْمَ الْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ. Because understanding the kitab and the sunnah, understanding the Qur'an and the sunnah is fard, is compulsory. And you cannot understand it except in the Arabic language. لا يفهم إلا باللغة العربية وما لا يتم الواجب إلا به فهو واجب. And this is a principle of usul al-fiqh. Whatever you need to accomplish what's compulsory becomes compulsory. For example, if you need water to do wudu, then water, like making wudu with water, becomes part of that obligation. Right? So he's using that same foundation and that same rule to say, if understanding the Qur'an and the Sunnah is an obligation for you, then whatever you need to understand that is an obligation for you to have it within itself. Right? And there's another book by Al-Imam Ibn Muhammad al-Shaybani, which he's known as the companion of Abi Hanifa, rahimahullah. he used this same rule to say that making money for men is an obligation, because Allah Azza wa Jal told you in the Qur'an, وَأَنفِقُوا مِمَّا كَسَبْتُمْ أو كما قال Allah Azza wa Jal, and spend from what you have earned. And the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal is telling you to spend is an obligation for you to do. So whatever you need to do that spending, i.e. having money, is an obligation within itself. So he said, this means that for a man to make money is an obligation. So this rule, many times scholars, they use it to say that something is an obligation. In this case, Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah, he said that learn the Arabic language is an obligation because understanding the Qur'an and the Sunnah is an obligation within itself. The 9th quote is by Ibn Khaldun, a very known historian from Al-Andalus. He says, وَمَعْرِفَتُهَا ضَرُورِيَّةٌ عَلَى أَهْلِ الشَّرِيعَةِ, that knowing the Arabic language is an obligation for the people of Sharia, the people who wants to understand the Deen. إِذْ مَأْخَذُ الْأَحْكَامِ الشَّرْعِيَّةِ كُلِّهَا مِنَ الْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ وَهِيَ بِلُغَةِ الْعَرَبِ. Because the ahkam and how you can extract ahkam rulings from the Sharia is from the Kitab and the Sunnah and is in Arabic. فَلَا بُدَّ مِنْ مَعْرِفَةِ الْعُلُومَ الْمُتَعَلِّقَ بِهَذَا اللِّسَانِ. So you cannot avoid not knowing the ulum, the subjects and the sciences of this language, lisan al-Arab, liman arada ilm al-Sharia, for whoever wants the knowledge of al-Sharia. If you are serious of understanding Islam in depth. And the 10th one and the last one is by Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri. He says, ما أحدث الناس مروءة أعجب من تعلم الفصاحة. He says, there is no new act of nobility people have adopted that amazes me more than learning eloquence, fasaha. So he says that there is nothing more fresh that you can be doing right now to acquire al-muru'ah. And again, al-muru'ah, like I said, it was mentioned before, and as you can see, is very commonly mentioned. Al-muru'ah is basically masculinity, okay? And there's many different words on how you can explain it. Again, the second link in the description, there's going to be a video that explains to you what al-muru'ah is in more depth. And he says that there's nothing more fresh to do, more new to do, to acquire al-muru'ah from learning al-fasaha, from learning eloquence and how to speak the Arabic language with eloquence, which is one of the most beautiful traits of Muslim men. And this is why Ibn Shabrama, rahimahullah, one of the tabi'in, he said that Zaynul Rijal an-Nahu, that the beauty of men is an-Nahu, is grammar, knowing grammar. Wa Zaynul Nisa ash-Shahm, and the beauty of women is their fat. Right? So I just added that quote for you as a bonus. Again, if these quotes have done its job in showing you that if you want to start practicing a translated version of your religion in the English language and actually understand al-Islam in the language that it was revealed, if it did its job, go ahead and click the link in the first link in the description. Is going to bring you to a video, a 1-hour video, and I explain to you there how you can learn the Arabic language at the same level of somebody who went to Mauritania, Egypt, or Medina University. From where you are at right now, along the side of your main responsibilities that you have going on right now, you can go ahead and watch it on your own time. The second video will be explaining to you what al-muru'ah is. I hope you enjoyed. Wassalamu alaikum.